was beyond because the level and the idea of going and traveling had to be both through the level of Moshe, which is Amshachim Lamata, the level of Aaron, which is Halam Lamata Lamaila, which is essentially the avoida of davening and the avoida of learning. Torah is something that has to do with Moshe Rabbeinu at the level of coming from above to below. Lal Torah mitzvahs, the Rebbe says, is the idea of coming from above, whereas Aaron is the level of tefillah. That's the halam al matalamayla, and Aaron is called Sheshvina de Matronisi. It's called the escort of the queen, meaning by the chasana of the Yidden, with Hashem, by Matan Torah. There was the level of elevating from below to above. That was Aaron's job, and Moshe Rabbeinu was Sheshvina de Malka, bringing the Eibishter down from above to below. This is all the Rebbe is connecting with what he said earlier concerning the idea of Miday Chodesh b'Chodsh, that he was talking about that Shama is getting an aliyah of Ishtachavah every single Shabbos and every single Rosh Chodesh. Let's go on page 299, the third page of the copies, second paragraph. Since the descent of the neshama is for the sake of an ascent, if the ascent will only be to the place from which the descent came from. So let's say the neshama, came from Atzilus and it goes back to Atzilus. So it's not understood what benefit, what profit is there from the descent. He said also that Moshe Rabbeinu vayichtav motzayim l'masayim, elam masayim l'motzayim. The two expressions is motzayim l'masayim means that it's coming out from its high levels to its travel to come down and to be mamshech halakus down here lamata, and that the other way around also, that eventually becomes aliyah lamata l'mayla l'masayim l'motzayim. So he says this descent cannot be just to return to where the Motzayim was. Both ways use Motzayim where they came out from, and then they're traveling back to Motzayim. In Cain, therefore we must say that the ascent that's through the descent, it's a much higher place than the place from which the descent came from initially. That's what the Alter Rebbe explains on Al Torah. I think that's why he's mitzayin to it on Maimer Al Torah on Parshas Masei. It says Sham Tzeihem Habeis. The second time when it says Motzeihem, in other words, when it says Maseihem LaMotzeihem, after it says that Vayichtav Moshe Motzeihem LaMaseihem, it says Eila Maseihem LaMotzeihem. So it says these are the travels that are going out. The place to which the elevation is going to. Masa'ayim, he's traveling to the Motzeihem. It's higher than the first Motzeihem when it says in the beginning, Vayichtav Moshe es Motzeihem l'Masa'ayim. So even though he's using both times the word Motzeihem, the first time Motzeihem and the second time Motzeihem, still in all, the second Motzeihem, the second place that they're returning to, is higher than the first. It's higher than the first Motzeihem. It's higher than the first place that they're coming out from. That over there and from there was the descent. When he went Motzeihem l'maseihem, they're going out to their travels. Like it's explained in many places what we say every morning, that the neshama that you placed in me is pure. Afterwards it descends into the level that you created her, you formed her, and you blew her into me, and you are guarding her, the neshama within me, protecting it, making sure that my neshama stays inside of me. So these are all the different levels, including Tahira, that the neshama went through in the process of coming down here into this world, or where it emanated from, Tahira, before it began the process of coming down into this world. But through the descent, through the neshama going from the stage of Tahira. Now it's going to become Barasa, Yitzhart, and so on. Now it rises up and it attains in this world a level that's higher even than Tahiri, the purity of the neshama that was the place where it started, the whole process, the place that it initially came from before the whole process of descent of Atam Barasa began. And the Rebbe says this in the word Tahiri, it's pure. There are different ways of explaining the Tahiri. We can explain Tahiri is going on Atzilus a lot of times. Then Barasa is Bria, Yitzhak is Yitzira, and the fact that is the world of Asiya. Sometimes, so this explains, no, Tahiri is much higher. Tahiri is in the level of Ak, or there is something not Simpson. So the Rebbe is saying, as high as you will explain the word Tahira, what that level of purity, or it says Etzem HaShamayim L'Toira, that Rebbe brings in other places, which means for its brilliance and shiningness. So as high and brilliant as the level is that the neshama was before its descent, however you will translate the word Tahiri, until the place that it goes up to a level that's incomparably higher than Tahiri. The aliyah because the elevation and the ascent that the neshama attains through coming down here is to a place that's not just higher than Tahiri and higher than any type of level that we will identify Tahiri with. It reaches the level that is beyond any comparison, to whatever description of level you will apply to Tahiri. Rather, the aliyah that the ascent is to become one in the body of the king, to become melded in and to join with the body of the king. What's it mean, the body of the king? No physical body. It means with the very entity of the Eibush Tabat Musa in Hashem's very essence. And we know in comparison to Hashem's very essence, every revelation, every light, every level is of insignificance. This will be understood, the connection in a possible way with the pasuk v'haya midei Chodish b'Chodsh. It'll be every single month. We will go up to we will go up to Yerushalayim, and every single week we will go up to Yerushalayim to the base of Mikdash instead of 3 times a year being Oil Regel. The Rebbe is connecting this with the last point that we just now said. That in the pasuk in this pasuk of the Chodish b'Chodsh is explained ha'ilu shenas b'neshama la'achar hagolus. It's explain the elevation that will happen in the neshama after the golus, more so than it was beforehand. Because we're saying that the chiddush, what it says, well, we cannot come and see and bow down. From the fact that we say we cannot bow down, this means to say that it's a spiritual bowing down. It's a level of the neshama that's missing, because physically bowing down, we can bow down now as well. So we're saying that it's a neshama type of aliyah. And this neshama type of aliyah surpasses or is more than what we had only 3 times a year. To such a degree that we say that we don't have to wait for the days that are called Yom Tovim, which are also known as Mikra Kodesh, a holy convocation, but rather the Oila Regel will be every single month and every single Shabbos. And even more so, the Gam b'mei HaChodesh, she'oz hi avodas hachana leinin Rish Chodesh, even during the days of the month, when then it's only the avodah of preparing for Rosh Chodesh, and on Rosh Chodesh we're going to reach that level of going to Yerushalayim. But during the days of the month, we're preparing for Rosh Chodesh. Val derech ze be'erev Shabbos, all the avodas hachana Shabbos. So too the day before Shabbos, that is an avodah preparing for Shabbos. That in Mishnah Torah, be'erev Shabbos, Yechol b'Shabbos, as the Gemara says, that someone that puts in effort and works and prepares before Shabbos, he will have what to eat on Shabbos. But if a person doesn't cook and do everything else that needs to do, prepare the food for Shabbos, since you're not allowed to, bake and cook and so on Shabbos, you'll go around hungry. So therefore, spiritually as well, a person has the avodah before Shabbos to be able to come to the Shabbos of Los Loving, where every Shabbos will be in the Beis Hamikdash. The cloud is bringing every single person to the third Beis Hamikdash in those times before the Rosh Chodesh, before Shabbos. So in other words, by the time Shabbos comes, by the time Rosh Chodesh comes, they're already there. Mi Elakov to find out who are these that they will fly like a cloud, like we mentioned earlier. The Rebbe says, we must say that the clouds will bring them to Yerushalayim before Shabbos enters during the weekday. We can't say that the clouds will bring them during the weekday. So the Rebbe it has here a lengthy footnote that says that there's a commentary on the Yalkut Shemaini. This Yalkut Shemaini says that they will be flown by clouds, and that's how they will get there every out of Shabbos, and also Mefarshim on the other Medrash that speaks about them, how they will get there every Shabbos by the clouds. From there, it seems to indicate that there's no halachic issue of traveling by clouds on Shabbos, because the problem is the idea of Tchum Shabbos. Tchum Shabbos is the distance that a person's allowed to walk on Shabbos. There's Chazal say, "Ein Tchumim l'mayla ma'asor." The ideas of Tchum Shabbos, the halachas of Tchum Shabbos, doesn't apply higher than 10 handbreadths. So therefore, since it doesn't apply in higher than 10 handbreadths, so technically the clouds can carry them. They're not traveling, they're not crossing the Tchum. They're allowed to do so even on Shabbos. And then the Rebbe goes on the footnote and he explains that it says that they will daven over there in the morning, and the clouds are taking them early in the morning. In Yerushalayim, they daven over there in the morning, and then they return them home in the middle of Shabbos. He brings it. There's a medrash. There's a medrash that says that they will bring them home in the middle of Shabbos they should have their meal, and then brings it back to Yerushalayim for mincha. So it gets up in the morning, you get on your cloud, you daven shachris in the Beis Hamikdash, and then it returns it turns you home. You have your cholent, you have your kugel, you come back to shul with the clouds. You take a hop on the clouds and come back to Yerushalayim for mincha. So the Rebbe says he goes into a whole discussion about this. The Rebbe says that there's a whole. The Rebbe goes into the time changes. How's it going to work with the clocks? He doesn't really explain. He just says, first of all, there's a machlokes about is there tchumim higher than 10? Is it not higher than 10? And that's what has to do. It seems to be that there's different mefarshim that say differently. Anyway, he doesn't come to direct maskana, but he says that there's very complicated and new halachas which will need to be examined to be able to determine this. So he says, but essentially the Rebbe is standing more or less by what he's saying, that that we're not limited to Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh to have these aliyahs. These aliyahs already begin prior to Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, so they should be able to be by Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. They're afraid to be there. But Ad Shaboyim, to the end of the page 299, until they come at the top of page 300, L'Bchinas Chodesh B'Chodesh, to the level of every month with Shabbos b'Shabbat in every Shabbos. So Chassidus also explains V'hoyim midei Chodesh b'Chodesh v'Shabbos b'Shabbatoi. Even though it's a poetic language of saying every single Shabbos, but Chassidus explains Chodesh b'Chodesh means the month of the month. Shabbos b'Shabbatoi means the Shabbos of the Shabbos, meaning one is reaching a very high level in Rosh Chodesh itself, that even in comparison to Rosh Chodesh, it's called Rosh Chodesh. One is reaching such a high level in Shabbos that even in comparison to Shabbos, it's called Shabbos. Dainu Chodesh shel Chodesh shel Amayim b'Chodesh Stam v'Shabbat shel Shabbos shel Amayim b'Shabbos Stam. This is talking about the Chodesh of the Shabbos of the Shabbos, which is higher than the ordinary Rosh Chodesh, and the higher the ordinary Shabbos can be verbal to the Torah. Any questions before we go? Okay. So he says on page 300, that's what it says, and it will be every month and every Shabbos they will go up to Yerushalayim. Wherever it says the word Vahaya, it's only an expression of joy. Vahaya is an expression of joy, the Chazal say. Like it's explained in many places. In the Hemshech Rachmanim known as Tafrishayim Beis, it's explained what does it mean, what's the significance of the word Vahaya? Why would Vahaya have to do with joy? The word Vahaya is the same letters like the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. But the combination of the letters are different. Yud Kei Vav Kei, you start off with a Yud and Yud Kei, and then you go to Vav Kei. But Vahaya is just the opposite. First the Vav Kei, then the Yud. First the letters Vav Kei come, and afterwards the letters Yud Kei. What's the significance of this? The Indian Yud Kei, him on the stars Lavaya Lekain. The idea of Yud Kei is that which is concealed to Hashem our God, like we spoke about also in the previous mind. Yud Kei is the level of Chachma Bina, which is the source of our love and awe of Hashem. The awe and love of Hashem that's associated with every person according to their measure. Every person's level of love and awe, it's different. Every person's ava and yira is different than the other. We now Torah mitzvahs. The opposed of Vavke, as we mentioned in the previous mimer, is Torah and mitzvahs. Vav goes on the level of koil. Koil has to do with Torah learning. Hey has to do with machshava dibur ma'isa, level of malchus, the mitzvahs hamelach, the commands of the king. That's mitzvahs. That is equal by all yid. Since the combinations of the letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei will be in such a way that first will be the letters Vav Kei, and then will be the letters Yud Kei. The Torah mitzvahs. The primary thing is first is the Vav Kei, first is the Torah mitzvahs. It's called Chad V'Chad from Shura Delay. Not like that is concealed for Hashem our God, that every single person that's according to their measure. This is similar to what he was saying also in the previous mimer, that Hashem will not enter Yerushalayim Shel Maila before he enters Yerushalayim Shel Mata. And Yerushalayim Shel Mata, we said that's the level of Vav Kei, the level of Bayis Sheni, the Heitata, that's the level of Torah mitzvahs. Yerushalayim Shel Maila, that's the level of Yud Kei, that's the level of Ava V'Yira. And the Rebbe said the same idea, that first there is going to be an idea of Torah mitzvahs, then there could be the level of Ava V'Yira. The Rebbe says, because of that, there will be the idea of joy. Now, the Rebbe doesn't explain what's the connection with the fact that Torah mitzvahs comes first, and that's why it will be joy. But with Pashtas, it's because it's something that's equal by all, and something that's attainable by all. Since it's something equal and attainable by all, that's the reason for the joy. Because if the person sees something that's unattainable, something that he cannot do, so then there's lacking joy. He's trying for something, but it's not his level, and how am I going to reach there, and so on. But if he's given something that he and the tzaddik ador and the gadol ador is the same, can do the same, so he has joy. Only when we have the vav and the yud came, so then it becomes that Tzion is with mishpat, it's redeemed, and its captives are returned with tzedakah. The mishpat in Torah is vav. As we mentioned before, the level of vav, that's the level of koil, it's a level of sound. That has to do with Torah, that's mishpat. So that's the first part of pasuk. Tzion b'mishpat ipad. It's tzedakah, close kol mitzvahs. Mavur b'geras hakodesh. Like Alter Rebbe says in the geras hakodesh, that tzedakah is the general aspect that includes in it all the mitzvahs. Zau inyan ois hey. That's the idea of the letter hey. By days of poilim sheyiyah v'ro kol basar daike. And through that, we affect that should be through Torah mitzvahs. We bring about that should be that all flesh will see. Specifically, the flesh will see. You do adiyah mashakasim. V'ro kol basar v'lo yeni basar, as it's known the exact language that says. All flesh will see. It doesn't say all eyes of flesh will see, because the greater miracle will be that even something that's not meant to see, like the flesh itself, forget about the eyes of flesh is miraculous already to see godliness. But the flesh itself, that the flesh itself will see that at the mouth of Hashem spoke. So similar to this also the pasuk said in connection with Rosh Chodesh. The Yavi called Basar, Daikalish Takos Hashem. It said Lefanai that all flesh specifically will come to bow down before me. That even the flesh will be permeated with godliness to such degree that the flesh itself will bow down. Not just like we said before, the neshama will bow down, but the flesh itself will be so permeated with godliness that it will have the bittul to the Eibishter. And afterwards it comes that which comes down from above. Like we said before, there's the level of Aaron, which is Mata Lamaila, and there's Moshe, which is Lamaila Mata. So it says, Amar Hashem. It says, Yavikal Basar Lishtachves Lefonai, Amar Hashem, said Hashem. So first there's the Basar, the Mata Lamaila comes and is doing its Aliyah and it's doing its Ishtachava. And then there's a revelation from above, Amar Hashem. In a way of saying that's in a soft way, as it's known that the Chazal explained the difference between Vayomer and Vayidaber. That Vayidaber is said in a strong manner. Vayomer is said in a way of a soft manner. So that's how it will be that Hashem will impart upon us the way in a soft way. He doesn't explain over here the significance of the soft way, but most probably the point is that since la'asid lavoi, the flesh will be transformed, so there's not going to be the type of challenge. It says, "Vasiroisi leva evan," I will remove your heart of stone and I will give you a heart of flesh. The flesh, the Chazal explain, is soft. The heart of stone is hard and difficult and doesn't receive. So when a person has a heart of stone, so then he needs to be spoken to in the way of devarim and the way of harsh matters, in the way of difficult speech. But when it's a level when Yavi called basar lishtakos lefonai, when all flesh is coming to bow down, we have the level of even the flesh itself, even the material itself recognizes Hashem, and the basar itself sees that the mouth of Hashem spoke. So then what comes down from above is not meeting up with resistance. So therefore there doesn't have to be a level of dibur, but it could be in a way of amira, in a soft manner. So it should be for us. Erev Shabbos Lacher Chatzos, that on Friday afternoon after midday, which is in the years of Hashem, that's B'Soif Elef Hashlishi, that's the end of the 6th millennium. In other words, after 5,500 years since creation. The clouds will come, and will take every single person to the third base of Migdash. The Chazal does not leave the simple meaning that it says that they will be brought to the base of Migdash. Especially this Maimer Azal in the Pasuk in the written Torah, until the coming of Mashiach speedily in our day. Okay, any questions? Okay, we finished a little bit early. So one more point I wanted to add from that footnote is that everybody, when the Rebbe comes out, that everybody holds that there will be everybody holds that there will be the clouds bringing them before Shabbos as well. The question is, depending upon the machlokes, if there is the halachas of Tchum that is higher than 10 tfachim, the question is, will they come multiple times? Will they come, let's say, for Friday night, and then return home, and then come in the Shabbos morning, and then return home, and then come from Mincha? Or will they come prior to Shabbos and just stay there the entire Shabbos? But the main point that Rebbe wants to say is that even according to the opinion that holds that there are a lot of fly on Shabbos, it doesn't mean that they won't be going there also before Shabbos to be there in time for the entry of Shabbos. So therefore, there's going to be a whole discussion, like the Rebbe says, with all different types of complicated halachas in when he has to leave, when he arrives, time differences. Here Shabbos didn't start, there Shabbos started, how everything works out. We're going to have to do all these figuring out. But if we're going to talk about that they came before Shabbos, you clarify all the issues, you avoid all these problems. Whereas if they're coming on Shabbos, you have a lot of issues to deal with. Okay, take care.
So right now, if we want